Here I shall demonstrate the installation of Atomic Fishbowl, which as you will see is extremely straightforward. The first thing we'll do is create a VM to run Fishbowl locally on my Mac. This will be very similar for VMware ESXi or Workstation, and this should give you an idea of what to do. We'll select CentOS 7 64-bit as our OS type. We shall choose Customize Settings, and we'll give our OS guest a name. Let's remove some of the unnecessary hardware from the VM, like the webcam, the printer, disconnect Bluetooth, and remove the sound card. Let's set the VM to use 4 gigs of memory and 4 CPU cores. And set the hard disk to 25 gigabytes. Fishbowl will refuse to install if it's any smaller than this. We'll just confirm that synchronized time is set in advance, which it is. In this case, I'll set the network to bridged mode so that it's on the local LAN, but this is really dependent on your environment. And we'll set the DVD drive to use the product ISO and connect it. Now our VM is configured, so let's start it. You'll see the ISO boot menu. You should usually choose the first option to use the traditional nicknaming convention of ET80, unless you prefer the new, quote, predictable style of the newer Linux distros, which I personally can't stand. The installer will start, and with a clean VM there should be no interaction until the very end. This should only take a couple of minutes. I'll speed it up here for your convenience. At the very end, you'll be asked if you'd like to drop into a shell. Just hit enter to choose no and reboot. Once you see the login at first boot, you'll need to wait a couple of minutes for post-installation tasks to complete, which is really the Atomic Fishbowl containers provisioning themselves. You'll see what that looks like. This is about a minute and a half compressed into 10 seconds. Once the console messages cease, log in with the username root and the password kentech0. Type in the command nmtui and set the VM's host name. Then set the networking configuration by editing connection ETH0. When you set the IP address, ensure you enter it in CIDR notation, or it will get a /32 subnet mask. Then hit OK. At the end, I like to deactivate it and reactivate it for good measure. Those who will be rebooting this probably isn't strictly necessary. Now quit and issue the command systemctl space reboot from the shell. The VM will now reboot. Once it's back up, go to your browser and type https:// and the hostname or IP of your Atomic Fishbowl host. Accept the certificate error, and then accept the license agreement. The login credentials are admin and kentech0. On the first login, you'll be taken to the collections screen, but with no collections to find. Close the window and go into the Global Preferences at the top right-hand side of the page. Once in the Preferences, we need to configure the product to use SA. Click Symantec Security Analytics under Enable Service Types, then click the Symantec SA tab. Now enter the URL of your primary SA host, including https://. I also like to bump the rolling query delay to 3 minutes as a starting point. You may need even longer for your environment, depending on how long it takes for data to be written out. Click OK to save the settings. Go back into Collections by clicking the link in the upper left-hand corner, then click New SA Collection. You'll need to define a REST API endpoint for Fishbowl to pull data from. You'll need the API key for an account defined on the endpoint, which is distinct from the password that you log into SA with. If you don't already have the API key for your account, you can get this by logging into SA and clicking your username in the upper right-hand corner, then clicking Account Settings, and then by clicking Reset API Key. This will generate a new API key for your account and will overwrite any previous API key that was set. Copy this key and save it somewhere safe, as you'll need it later on. Now back in Atomic Fishbowl, near the bottom of the Create Collection dialog, click the plus sign under Select an API Endpoint. Enter the host name, API account credentials, of which the password is the API key we've just copied, REST port, and SSL settings for the service which you're adding. Then click the Test button. If your settings are correct, you'll get a thumbs up. Then click Save. That's all it takes to install and set up Atomic Fishbowl. You should now be able to start pulling content from SA. If you should encounter any problems with the installation, do feel free to get in touch with me personally at tim.underhay@knowledgekta.com.